Hi there and a very warm welcome to It Is What It Is with Wamoyo Favor the Captain. Thank you so much for your love towards the show. May the Lord do you well. We are still looking at the final way in which the Asian dragon, that is sexual immorality, captures its victims into its mouth. And this way we were looking at is sexual altars. We found that sexual altars are simply ungodly altars in the body. Today we are going to look at how to identify sexual altars in our families, among our friends, relatives, and in the society. In short, in our modern day life. And also we are going to look at sexual altars in biblical times. One thing worth noting is that every family has an altar that rules it. There are families that are ruled by altars of poverty. You find that in this family, hata wakijaribu kufanya nini, they can never come out of poverty. All of them unakuta kutoka ule mkubwa mpaka ule mdogo, hakuna mtu anaweza saidia ule mwingine, wote ni maskini. No matter what they try to do to get out of poverty, wanajikutanga wako bado kwa umaskini. That is how you know a family is being ruled by an altar of poverty. Another altar that can rule over families is the altar of polygamy. Unakuta kama ni wazee, kutoka ule mkubwa hadi ule mdogo, aezi wa bibi mmoja, it's either two kwenda mbele. And when they, ukiwauliza what usually happens, wanajikutanga tu. Meaning this is an altar. Remember we said, ungodly altars have a way of controlling people. The way they talk, the way they think, the way they do things. So unakutanga, if there's an altar that is ruling your life, you end up doing things that are with that are not within your control. Unajikuta no matter how much you try to control yourself, this is just beyond you. Another altar that can be ruling over families ni altar za magonjwa. Unakuta from January to December, watu wanakuwa wagonjwa. Those people never enjoy health. They don't know what health is. So there are families that are ruled by altars that altars of sickness. So there are families that are ruled by altars of sickness. The other families that are ruled by altars za alcoholism. Unakuta watu, yani they take alcohol, they drink from morning till evening. Na wakitry ku stop, they can't at all. Yani inafikanga level mpaka mtu afadhali auze kenye kiko kwa hao, so that they can take alcohol. So that is how you know that a family is being ruled by an altar. So every family, if you look keenly, utaona kila family inakuanga na utawala, an altar that is ruling it. And the best thing is to identify that altar and disconnect from it. Same way, kuna families, they are ruled by sexual altars. Unakutanga watu, whether it's a male ama a female, they've got, yani wao, they are sexually immoral. Whether ni mwanamke ama ni mwanaume, they are sexually immoral. They cannot stick to one partner. Hata wakiingia kwa ndoa, wanashinda wakisumbua their partners because they cannot stick to one partner. Hata wakiwa watu wake wawili, utakuta bado, they are still reaching out to other women. If it's a man, ana reach out to other women. If it's a woman, ana reach out to other men. Na bado ako kwa ndoa. That is how you know a family or somebody is being ruled by a sexual altar. They have uncontrollable sexual urges. Yani they move from one partner to another. Na si ati wanataka. Yani they try and they can't help it. And that is where unaonanga we said, when we are starting this series of sexual immorality, we said, never judge a man of God juu umemshika in sexual immorality. That does not mean they are not anointed. That does not mean they don't have the oil of God in them. Wengine wanaweza kuwa wametoka from families that have got these altars that are controlling them, sexual altars. Ndio nasikianga kuna anointed men of God and they are so anointed but they cannot control their sexual urges. They are so anointed but wakitoka huko they are so sexually immoral. They are sexually loose. Sio kusema the oil is not on them. Sio kusema ati God ajewa choose, but wana madhabahu ya kwenye wametoka. They are being controlled by sexual altars from their father's household or from their mother's household. And these things are so real. So, tuseme a man of God ametoka kwa familia yenye inakontroliwa na sexual altar. Utakuta that man of God is sleeping with church members. Wanawake wa kwaya, girls wa choir, sijua praise team, church members, hata bagua anything in a skirt, you find that man of God atalala na wao. Why? Because there's a sexual altar that is controlling them, pulling them to have illicit sex with members of the opposite sex. Na utakuta sio love, it is lust. Sexual altars is all about uncontrollable sexual lust. So utakuta that man of God akona sexual scandals here, sexual scandals there, you know, but si ati ni kupenda kwao. These are people who simply come from families that are being controlled by sexual altars. And the earlier we know this, the better. We'll stop judging men of God and accept. No, so men of God need to realize, or anyone who has a calling upon their life, unafaa establish ni altar gani inakutawala. You work on it, because usipogundua the altar that is working in your life, uichangamkie, it will catch up with you. That goes for men of God wenye wana control wana altars of poverty. Unakuta unaongoza watu wako na utajiri, lakini wewe ni maskini, yani you can't make headways. And so people who have got wealth and all that, to come to your church inaweza kuwa ni issue, because wanakuangalia wanashindwa, where is this person leading us? Mtu wako na umaskini hivi anatuongoza atupeleke wapi? So unless you deal with that altar of poverty, hautaenda mbali. And you can't give what you don't have. How can you speak prosperity and wealth over your members, yet uko na altar ya poverty inakucontrol? So it is upon us, not just men of God, but every one of us, tujiangalie where we have come from. Zile families tumetoka, zina controliwa na altar gani? Then we deal with that altar. One thing about a sexual altar, it is not something you can pray about. Sexual altars inatakanga deliverance, because they are so deep. They are so deep. It is not something you just wake up one day and decide that sasa mimi nimeokoka. And by the way, sexual altars have got nothing to do with salvation. Zinatakanga deliverance. Deliverance is what works when you realize that sexual altars are ruling in your family, ama they are ruling over you. A good example we are going to look at in the biblical times, to establish in the modern life. Ukitaka kujua uko na sexual altar, even as a married woman, utajikuta unatoka kwa ndoa, unaenda kwa wanaume wengine na si moja. You are having multiple sexual partners. The same with men. You cannot be content with one woman. Una move from one person to another, because there is a force behind you. The sexual altar is what pushes you to have multiple sexual partners, or multiple sexual encounters, or what we call illicit sex. We are going to look at an example of sexual altar in biblical times. And the best example we are going to look at is David. David in Psalm 51:5 says, he was conceived through sin. His mother bore him through sin. So this insinuates that David was never born in holy matrimony. Therefore, any sex that is not within the confines of marriage is a good ground for sexual altars to be formed. Remember tulisema, a way in which a sexual altar is formed is through having illicit sex that is not holy. The more sexual partners you have, or the moment you have sex that is not within the confines of marriage, or sex that is not holy, una form a sexual altar in your body. So David says he was born in sin. So already pale kulikuwa na sexual altars. And remember you said sexual altars are generational. So inamaanisha David struggled with sin because kulikuwa na mahali, kulikuwa na a foundation, kulikuwa na mlango ulifunguka wa sexual sin. Kulikuwa na mlango ulifunguka, altar ikafunguka, ikajiform ya sex. So David, from the word go, was dealing with sexual altars, was dealing with a sexual altar, was struggling with a sexual altar. That is why he could not overcome sexual sin. Na ndio unaona Job made a covenant with his eyes not to look at a woman lustfully. David, on the other hand, made the same vow but could not keep it. Why? Because there was a sexual altar controlling his life. Unlike Job alimake a vow that he will not look at a woman lustfully. There's nowhere in the Bible tunaambiwa ati Job aliingia into sexual sin. In fact, he was blameless. But look at David. He made the same vow kama Job, but he could not keep it. Why? Because there was a driving force. There was a sexual altar that was ruling his life, that was making it very impossible for him to resist sex. And that is why unaona the first episode ama drama inafunguka tukionyeshwa David on the rooftop. The moment tu aliona Bathsheba, he could not help it. Alisema aitwe. And that was the beginning of sexual sin ya David, na ilienda all the way to his sons. Remember, we said sexual altars are generational. So already altar imejiform David akizaliwa. David ameingia into sexual sin na Bathsheba, and he did not stop there. He went on to have other wives. Now David amepata watoto. Now watoto wamekuta a sexual altar in the house. So automatically the sexual altar becomes stronger than them. They cannot say no to sex. They cannot say no to sexual sin. Why? Because sexual altars are generational. Now already in this generation, kuna iyo the sexual altar imejiform, and there's nobody who has dealt with it. So what happens? Absalom, David's son, anachukua concubines wake, analala nao at the rooftop in the sight of all Israel. A sexual altar at play. That does not stop there. Amnon, mtoi wa David, anarape half sister yake Tamar. Why? He becomes very sick, sickly in love with the half sister Tamar. Sickly in love. And this is what we are calling lust. Juu Biblia inasema after alirape Tamar, alimchukia more than alikuwa mempenda. So haikuwa upendo, ilikuwa sexual lust. Yenye inakuanga hidden in sexual altars. So Amnon was advised by rafiki yake enter into sexual sin na nani? Na half sister yake Tamar. It did not stop there. Solomon summarized the equation. And of course, maybe akukosi kuna tusichana here and there, mabibi here and there that were never recorded in the Bible. So the sexual altar was catching up with the house of David. The sexual sin that was initially started or established when David was born was catching up with David and his lineage. So that is how serious sexual altars can get. The sooner you realize there's a sexual altar that is working in your life and you get deliverance, the better. Dawa ya sexual altar ni deliverance. Hakuna dawa ingine. Because much as you say ati umeokoka, ati you are going to be safe, you're not going to be safe. Utajikuta umeanguka into sexual sin. So the moment you deal with this altar, the better. Remember, this is a very strong ground for the devil to thrive. Sexual altars is one of the strongest ways in which the Asian dragon captures its victims into its mouth. Jiangalie, angalia marafiki wako and your relatives. Establish kama kuna a sexual altar that is ruling them and deal with it. The sooner you deal with it, the better. And this is very crucial, especially for wale watu wana feel they have the anointing on them or the calling of God in them. Before you embark on this call, deal with that sexual altar before it destroys you. Because many men of God are being destroyed by the sexual altars that are ruling in their lives. Many people with potential, not just men of God, even people who are wired for greatness. Remember tulisema sex. Sexual sin is one thing that can huwezi enda mbali with sexual sin. Sexual sin is an enemy of greatness. So if you are wired for greatness, hata kama we si a man of God ama you have the calling of God on you, if you're wired for greatness and you have this sexual altar ruling your life, you had better deal with it. Otherwise, hautaenda mbali. Na ujue ukishainuka uanguke. Unless God akusaidie na nguvu zake zote, kuenda on top again, it is hard. So why do you have to wait for you to get to that level alafu angushwe na sexual sin? The earlier you deal with the sexual altars, the better. It is what it is. That marks the end of our first series of the ways in which the Asian dragon captures its victims into its mouth. You can follow us on Facebook at Kingly Favor Studio Reloaded, Instagram at Kingly Favor Studio Reloaded, TikTok at Kingly Favor Studio Reloaded, and YouTube at Kingly Favor Studio. So long, God bless you.